All right, so hi everyone. My name is Otis Toussaint. I work for the 5th Medical Recruiting Battalion, and today we will have the opportunity to talk to some subject matter experts in the career field of CRNAs. So I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion and stay tuned for more information. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Captain Holly Weaver, Colonel Stephanie Martinson, and Major James Dial. Major James Dial and Colonel Martinson are calling in from Germany. So, guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
How are y'all doing today?
Very well. Yourself?
Doing good, doing good. You know, we at the 5th Medical Recruitment Battalion, we want to say thank you, first of all, for taking the opportunity to come and talk with us today about CRNA career opportunities, given that you both are in that career field. And of course, Captain Holly Weaver, we want to say thank you to you for bringing them onto the fold to talk with us. So I just want to give you each a chance to really introduce yourself, and then we could kind of go into the presentation of everything today.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Captain Holly Weaver, and like Otis said, I am an Army medical recruiter for the 5th Medical Recruiting Battalion. I'm located in Kansas City, but our battalion covers the entire Midwest, and if anyone is located anywhere outside of our area, I will get you to the right recruiter to help you out. I'm also an Army nurse, and it is truly an honor and a privilege to be in my current position because I am helping the future get set up in their Army career and take care of our warfighters. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you, Otis, for having us.
All right. And ma'am?
Okay, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Stephanie Martinson, and I'm an Army nurse also. And as you already said, I'm a CRNA, and I'm working right now at Landstuhl, Germany. I've been in the Army for a little over 20 years now, and doing anesthesia for 5 years. And so I'm getting close to the end of my career, and I'm happy to tell you anything you want to know about it.
All right, sir.
And I'm Major James Dial, stationed here in Landstuhl with Stephanie. Kind of a unique thing. Stephanie actually works at the hospital alongside of us, but she's also part of the combat support hospital. I'm organic to the hospital there, and you know, I've been here 2 years, and I actually graduated anesthesia school with Stephanie. Been in the Army just over 20 years. Live here in this little farming village with my wife and 2 kids and 2 dogs.
Well, I appreciate y'all, you know, with the short introduction, telling us what you're all about. And I know Captain Weaver sent me over some presentation information. So we're going to go through each one of them accordingly. And of course, I'm going to allow you, Colonel Martinson and Major Dial, to, you know, of course, interject and share some information that may be relevant to you from the slides that Captain Weaver gives. So is that okay with you all?
Sure. Let's do it.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So let's share the screen right here. And Captain Weaver, go ahead. Take the reins of this bull. Go ahead.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about opportunities in the Army medical field, specifically Army Nurse Corps, and as a CRNA, both ways to become a CRNA, and if you're already a CRNA, how you can apply and serve in the Army or Army Reserve, so we have full and part-time opportunities. And so if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay.
So I actually have a quick, fun story to tell everyone. About a decade ago, I was sitting in nursing school at Graceland University when we were told that we had a presentation from an Army medical recruiter, and that person was at the time Captain James Dial, who is now Major James Dial. And Captain Dial gave a presentation on Army nursing, everything, all the opportunities that there were, his Army story, shared his experience, and he is the reason that I decided to apply and become an Army nurse. So what better now than 10 years later, interview him as he is now a CRNA, and I am now an Army recruiter working out of the same office that he worked out of a decade ago.
Oh, wow.
So like both, Colonel Martinson, Major Dial, and myself, join us on the best team on earth as an Army nurse.
Okay. Excellent.
Next slide. So just a little bit of an overview, our requirements for becoming an officer in the Army and as an Army nurse. Age requirements, you need to be between the ages of 21 and 42, although we do have some age waivers, up to 48 for reserve. So if you're close to the age or over, definitely still reach out and we will see what all we can do to get you an age waiver. For active duty, you need to be a United States citizen, but if you're in the reserve, wanting that part-time opportunity, you just need to have a green card. In order to be accepted into the Army's CRNA program, you need to have a GPA of 3.0. And then if you already are a CRNA, GPA of 3.0 is preferred but not required. And then if you're applying for CRNA school, you need to have that 1 year of critical experience prior to applying to our program. And then, of course, as a CRNA, you have to have your requirements of BLS and ACLS as well as being board certified. And that's all I have for the eligibility, unless anyone else has anything else to add.
Okay. Sir or ma'am, you have anything else to add?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
All right, let's jump into the next slide.
All right, so this is our current bonus information and student loan repayment for the Army Reserve. We currently offer a $30,000 accession bonus, and you can get that up to 4 years, as well as up to $60,000 loan repayment, which is paid in $20,000 increments per year. And that, of course, is before taxes, and we will only pay to the principal of that loan. But as I've shared before in the past, I took a retention incentive from the Army, and they paid off the majority of my student loans, and it was very helpful. And then because they paid so much of the principal down, I was able to pay off the rest of the amount very quickly, and that was a huge blessing to me and my family because it took off a large financial burden. And then for active duty CRNAs, we have a $250,000 bonus if you sign on a 4-year contract. And this will change every year. So our fiscal year starts over again in October for FY21. So it is possible that it could change, but we have some great incentives, on top of all of your regular incentives of just being in the Army, such as a thrift savings plan, which is your retirement plan that you can put money into. The Army will do up to 5% matching. And if you do serve a full career of 20 years, then you could receive a pension as well, on top of the low-cost health care for the Army Reserve, no-cost health care for active duty, and then all of the other benefits of being in the Army.
Okay. I heard a gasp just now from someone on the panel. I hope it's a good gasp.
Well, I'm not certain, but I think there is well, maybe it's not for direct accession. I think there is a 6-year bonus, isn't there? Not certain.
I think that's a retention bonus.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, this is what she has here is probably for a session, right?
Right.
All right.
So you guys have been retained, so you're enjoying some bonuses, right?
Okay.
Right. The retention, once, I guess, so if someone were to accept this offer, 4-year contract for a $250,000 bonus, once that 4-year contract is done, you can re-contract for a retention bonus. And the amount depends on how many years you recontract for, from 2 years to 6 years.
Awesome.
I think, yeah, I won't.
It's good to know that there's that opportunity out there. As you continue to serve, you're going to be compensated, and those bonus opportunities will still be there for you.
Right.
Excellent. Let's jump into the next one.
Okay, so this slide, I kind of just have an overview of some different opportunities that you could have as an Army nurse. And then I would like for Major Dial and Colonel Martinson to add in, some of the opportunities they've had as Army nurses and different opportunities that you could have as a CRNA that are maybe a little bit different, than what you would have just as being a CRNA. So as an Army nurse, I have been in command of a medical company. And, you have the opportunity to be in a lot of managerial roles, which is great experience on top of your actual clinical duties. Of course, there's opportunities for deployments, humanitarian missions, and then based off of your education and what the Army needs, there's always opportunities to teach and instruct. So if Colonel Martinson or Major Dial would like to add into opportunities they've had as an Army nurse and different opportunities that are out there, that would be awesome.
Sure. I'll just go first, I guess. I think most importantly for us, and what makes us different, is the deployment piece. Ultimately, you're going to get this great training and education, and at some point you're going to have to call on that in a deployed setting, and in some settings you're going to be the only anesthesia provider on the ground, caring for everyone in your area of operations. And so Stephanie and I have both done that. Of course, I did do the recruiting piece for a couple of years where I met Holly. She was a very easy application, by the way. Collegiate athlete with great grades, so that worked out well. Yeah, and I worked in a very busy medical center during the height of 2 wars, and really just grew a lot taking care of those patients.
Yeah, so like James said, I agree. I think the deployment opportunities are really unique. I deployed last year as a CRNA, and it is different than doing any type of civilian anesthesia in the way that, where I was at in a very kind of austere operating base. I was the only anesthesia provider in what we call our whole med ring. So that's definitely a unique opportunity as a CRNA. But I had been in the Army for 12 years before I even went to anesthesia school. And the best or most unique opportunity I had was working for the White House Medical Unit as a White House nurse, which is kind of more when you are a critical care nurse or have an ER background, in kind of the middle captain range is what they recruit for to do that job. But it's a really neat job because you work at the White House and you travel around the world doing assignments and advances for the president's or the vice president's trips. You travel on Air Force One. You just get to do a lot of really cool things that you could really never have imagined yourself doing. So that was by far my most unique assignment with the military.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you guys for sharing.
Thank you for sharing, y'all. You all want to jump into the next one?
Good to go.
Totally.
Hold on. Before we even jump into that, it looks like we have some questions coming in. Should I save the questions till the end, or do you want to answer them now? Are we open to answering them now?
It's up to you, Otis. We're good to go either way.
Yeah, let's add on the question. The question comes from Miss Michelle Phillips. The question is, good morning, team. We have a question for Major Dial. We have a recruiter in our office that is currently applying for the AECP. Based on your experience, what are things or positions that he should do post AECP to ensure competitiveness and near direct path to get accepted for the CRNA DNP? We appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely. And Stephanie can also, Colonel Martinson can also speak to this. I think her route was similar to mine. I was a critical care nurse working in San Antonio. And that's one of the major requirements, is that you have, I think, 1 or 2 years of critical care experience right now. In the past, they accepted like mother baby NICU and nursing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not certain that they're doing that anymore. Definitely Captain Weaver would be the person to ask, because she's kind of in the know with all those programs right now. I've been separated from that for quite a few years now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But definitely you have to get that critical care experience. You got to get the GRE score. A lot of times we'll bring you in for a shadow experience while you do 3 days in the operating room. And, we kind of assess not only your intellect, but your demeanor, and how do you work with patients? How do you work with staff? And how well do you take instruction? But definitely you got to find a critical care spot somewhere.
Excellent, excellent. And by the way, if you're trying to get a hold of Captain Weaver, as Major Dial said, look down on the bottom of the screen. We have it scrolling on our ticker on the bottom. Her email, her social media, her LinkedIn, it's all there. So send out a message to her, and I'm sure she will quickly answer to you. And send in your questions, send in your comments. These are encouraged. This helps with the discussion as well, okay? So anyone has anything else that you'd like to add to this?
I was just going to echo what Major Dial said with the critical care experience. If a civilian off the street is wanting to apply into our program, they need that 1 year of critical care experience. What if an active duty soldier is wanting to apply to our CRNA program? They need to have at least 2 years time on station. So that would require them to go to the critical care course and then work as a critical care nurse for around 2 years. And potentially you can apply before you meet that 2 year point, but you wouldn't be able to leave until you're at that 2 year point. So, it would take some backwards planning. But I would just encourage that soldier that's applying for AECP, as soon as, you show up to your unit, work hard, volunteer, show them that you're a self-starter, continue to excel, because you're going to be working in a med-surg environment. At your earliest opportunity, make sure your leadership is tracking that you're interested in critical care. Volunteer to float to those critical care units, to shadow there, get to the critical care course as soon as you're able to. And then once you're in that critical care course, you're going to be assigned a different unit or potentially PCS, and just make sure you keep your leadership informed of what your end goals are, and then make sure you put in the work and the effort to get you set up for success.
Okay, excellent advice. All right, you want to jump into the next one?
Let's do it.
Okay, hold on. Bam, right there.
Okay, so the first program that I'd like to share with everyone is the Health Professions Scholarship Program. And it is an active duty program for CRNA school. And the biggest takeaway for this program is that you have to be accepted into your program, and then you're accepted to become an officer in the Army, and you will commission, but you'll be on a reserve status while you're in school. And then once you complete school, then you will go on active duty orders and serve as an active duty CRNA. So this is different than our Sag Pan program, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit, because you're going to attend the school of choice as long as it meets the Army requirements, and it is an in-person school, but we have scholarship opportunities for both MSN and DNP, and no half-year scholarships. It has to be 1, 2, or 3 year scholarship, and then it's a minimum of a 3-year commitment. And while you're in school, something that's really pretty awesome, since you're going to be commissioned as a second lieutenant while you're in school, you'll be eligible to get your health care and all the Army benefits, start putting in towards your retirement. And you're also going to be receiving a monthly stipend of $2,200, to help take off that financial burden so you can focus on your schooling and not have to worry about the money piece. And then, like I said, once you're done with your school, then you come on active duty orders, and then you'll be working as a CRNA full-time for the Army.
Excellent. Excellent. All right.
And then
anyone?
I'm sorry. One more thing about this. The board application, it is in February, and then it starts in July for the next year. But you really have to plan in advance, because you're going to be boarding and going through that whole process. You have to meet all the eligibility requirements that I spoke at the beginning of the presentation, as well as being morally and medically qualified. And, if you have questions on if you might have a certain medical condition that might be a disqualifying factor to serve in the Army, just reach out to me via text, phone call, email, and I can help you out and get you set on the right path.
Okay. All right. Anyone else got anything to share with us? Okay, we're good to go. We'll jump into the next one.
All right, so the next program that I'm going to talk about is our Sag Pan Program, and it is through Baylor University. And the requirements.
Hey, Holly, let me expand the screen a little bit bigger, because the words are kind of small. Okay.
There's a lot of requirements, so.
Yeah, our faces are not going to show on this presentation. We're just going to hear your voice, but we'll work it through. So here we go. Go ahead.
Okay. So in order to apply and be eligible for this program, you need a nationally accredited BSN or MSN and a minimum GPA of 3.0. You also need to have a science GPA of 3.0, and your courses need to be within the last 5 years, as well as having taken a statistics course. Another one of the major requirements is taking your GRE and having at least a 300 with a 3.5 in writing. So that is very important, that even, just to get ahead of, because the GRE is something, you definitely need to study and prepare for, to make sure that you're meeting that requirement. And then we talked about the at least 12 months of critical care experience. And then I briefly mentioned, if you're an active duty soldier, then you need to have that 2 years time on station as well. CCRN or CEN, those are the ICU and emergency room nurse certifications. Those are suggested but not required. And how this works is it's kind of a two-phase process for application. Phase one, you apply to the actual program through Baylor, and you get accepted into their program. And then you start working with a recruiter like myself. Phase two is when you go do the shadowing, like Major Dial had talked about, and you interview with the phase two program director, and then you're also getting accepted to be an Army officer at this part. So you have to get accepted into the school, as well as you have to meet all of the eligibility requirements to serve as an officer, like I mentioned, both morally, physically qualified. And then the Baylor application deadline is 1 August, and that is also when the deadline is for recruiting. So mainly, we're going to be talking about more next year. The Baylor application opens up, I believe, in February, and then I have the link on the slide. So it's baylor.edu/nursing/Army DNP. Has all the information, FAQs about how to apply, and all the requirements that I just kind of briefly went over.
Okay, excellent. Anyone wants to add on to anything that we just heard or we're seeing? Nope. All right, let's jump into the next one. 1 second.
Okay, so this Sag Pan program itself, it is a 2-phase, 36-month course, so 3 years long, that culminates in getting a DNP, with, becoming a CRNA from Baylor. Phase 1 is the first year, and it's a 52 weeks of didactic instruction, and it's at our AMED Center and School, which is in Fort Sam, Houston, in person, in classroom training. And then phase 2, you could potentially be all over the country, all over where we have hospitals that are a part of this program, to do your 97 weeks of clinical training and continued distance learning. So there's a variety of different medical treatment facilities that you could be at to get that clinical experience. And the Sag Pan program is a little bit different than the HPSP, because you're on active duty orders while you're in school. Your job is to go to school, but you're going to be receiving active duty pay and benefits while you're attending school. And for this program, all students are required to attend the direct commission course, which is a 3-week course in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, that introduces you to the Army. This is for people that are applying that are civilians right now. Introduces you to the Army, and then you also have to complete BOLIC as well, which is the Basic Officer Leadership course, and it's in Fort Sam, Houston. And you have to get those 2 requirements knocked out before you start the program, so that you would work with your recruiter to figure out potentially timelines and stuff like that. If you're active duty, you would have already met those requirements. So that's just a little bit more information on that program. And if Colonel Martinson or Major Dial have anything else to add about Sag Pan, I will let them talk.
I'll add something. Of course, I'm biased to Sag Pan because that's the school that I went to. But I think I just want to repeat one of the things that you said, is that you're actually like on active duty. You're getting paid as an Army officer to go to school. You get all the benefits of being on active duty. You're accruing time in service. And I think all of that is a huge benefit to have your job to go to school. But I think also what's good or important about Sag Pan is that it specifically is training you to be an Army CRNA, and depending on where you work or train in the US, CRNAs work in different healthcare models. And so in some healthcare models, you're supervised or medically directed, but in the Army, you're a lot more independent. And so I think Sag Pan does the best job of training you to be that sole anesthesia provider, particularly when you go on deployments and or just like the one person in-house in a small, Army hospital. So that's kind of my bias towards Sag Pan.
And I couldn't agree more with what she just said there. When you graduate the Sag Pan program, you are an independent provider, period. And I can remember my director when I graduated, telling us, you guys can go anywhere in the country right now and run the OB deck and do any case there is. And I think that's really why we want to go to graduate school, right? We were bedside nurses. We were in the thick of it. And we were like, I think I can do this job. I'm smart enough. I'm willing to put the work in. And I want to be there at the most critical moments and make the impact.
Excellent. Excellent points. Are we good with this slide?
I have just a quick follow-up question to whoever would like to answer it. Where did you do your phase 2? And where are some potential hospitals that are phase 2 sites?
Well, I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, okay. Well, I did mine at Fort Hood, Fort Hood, Texas, which is home to more than a division of soldiers. And so probably the biggest benefit there was I did just a ton of mother, baby, and pediatrics. And in fact, so Fort Hood is one of the spots, and San Antonio is another spot. A lot of the San Antonio students come to Fort Hood to do their pediatrics and or their kind of labor and delivery rotation, because we just are nonstop, pumping out babies there. But there's Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Stephanie actually went to a very unique place as an Army officer in California. We have Tripler Army Medical Center in Hawaii, Eisenhower in Georgia, Madigan in Tacoma, Seattle area.
Yep.
Where else?
Fort Gordon.
Yeah, that's right.
Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Yep.
Okay. And then my other question is, what did your class, what was it comprised of? Army, were there other services? How many of the students were civilians off the street? And this is their first Army experience? Kind of like, what did your class look like?
So,
I mean, I would guess probably 50-50 active duty and 50% active. Well, maybe a little bit less than 50% active duty, and then the rest direct accessions. Although a lot of those people, I think, had prior military experience. The class usually has also a handful of Air Force students, and then students from the VA as well.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. All right,
okay,
let's jump into the next one.
Slide. Yep. So the next program that I just want to briefly touch on is our STRAP program, and this is specifically an Army Reserve program that will help supplement your pay or income while you're attending CRNA school. So the requirements for the STRAP program are you have to have a letter of acceptance from the accredited graduate program, and then you'll receive that $2,200 a month stipend while being in a reserve status. Although you do not have any commitment while you're in school, you would start serving at your reserve unit, that 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year commitment, that part-time job, once you've completed your schooling. And the obligation for accepting the stipend is that you pay back 1 year for every 6 months of assistance that you receive. So if you want to serve in the Army, but you want to stay local to where you're from, this is an amazing opportunity to still serve, receive some of those financial benefits, but remain in your local area, be assigned to a reserve unit within 50 miles, in most cases, to where you live. And then, your deployments are abbreviated. They're not as long as the active duty deployments, because we know that you have either a practice or a civilian job that you have to come back to. So the deployments are shorter, but this is just a great way if you're interested in becoming a CRNA, but you are looking for a part-time opportunity. This is a great program that we have to offer for that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to add to that, from my recruiting days, I had put in a guy, Steve McClure. He's a captain now, and he was just here for his rotation. So my 2 years in Germany, I've seen Steve McClure twice.
James, I didn't realize you recruited him.
Yeah, I did.
That's funny.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into the next one.
So the next slide is for the nurses that are wanting to become a CRNA, but you're not quite there yet in your career. Maybe you're in nursing school or you're a brand new nurse. This is a program that could help you get in that right direction. And it is the 66 Sierra, which is our critical care identifier student program. It is an active duty program. So in order to apply to this, you have to have at least 2 years of med-surg experience. And what this program does is it guarantees you a seat in our critical care nursing course, which is a 4-month program, both didactic and hands-on training, training you to become a critical care nurse in the Army. And then after you've completed this program, you're a fully qualified critical care nurse. So if you are, wanting to serve in the military on active duty, but you're not yet a critical care nurse, this would be a step in the right direction. Then you do your time as a critical care nurse and then could potentially apply as a CRNA. So, you have to get that critical care time, whether, as a civilian or active duty. So I just mentioned this program because it's relatively new. I think this is just our 2nd year offering it, and it's a really great way to get your foot in the door and get you on the right path, to the career that you're going after.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Awesome. Anyone else want to add on to this? Nope. Okay.
I mean,
let's move on. Oh, go ahead, ma'am.
I guess I was just gonna say, I mean, I completely agree. Like, if your goal is to do anesthesia, and you don't have critical care experience, I didn't know that this existed, that you could do this. So this was new to me, but I think this would definitely set you on the right path to do that a little bit more quickly. I did the Army Critical Care Nurse course myself many years ago, before I ever had any idea that I was going to do anesthesia. I will say that a lot of civilian university hospitals or medical centers, I don't know if they have something similar to this. I think maybe a lot of places, when you get into critical care or emergency medicine or other specialty types of nursing, it's a little bit more of a on-the-job training, where this actually has a fairly robust didactic phase and a preceptorship type of program. And so maybe if you're a little bit intimidated about doing critical care, I think this is a really great way to do it. And, gets you moving quicker towards anesthesia school, and maybe even helps you make the decision if doing critical care in anesthesia is something that you're actually really interested in.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the next one.
So this is just in general, whether you are already a CRNA, applying to become a CRNA in the Army or Army Reserve, you're applying to CRNA school, or you're just applying to become an Army nurse. These are just tips on your application that are going to make you stand out amongst your peers, because depending on what you're applying for, it can be very competitive, especially if you're trying to get into CRNA school. It's extremely competitive. Whether you're going for the strap, the Army Reserve Program, HPSP, which was the school of choice, active duty program, or the Sag Pan, which is the active duty program sponsored by Baylor and the Army. They are very competitive. So you want to make sure that you put your best foot forward and your application really stands out. So what helps you stand out is a really strong statement of motivation. And, that is a 1-page essay where you are talking about what is your call to serve. And I'll just briefly share, my call to serve. My grandpa served in the Army, my personal hero. I wanted to honor him. And, as well as I wanted the educational opportunities, I wanted the opportunity to serve my country and to give back, to the nation that I love. So just speaking to both your experience and what is your call to serve, will help make you stand out. Just putting a lot of effort into that 1-page essay will really go a long way. Strong letters of recommendation from supervisors, peers, past instructors. If you know anyone, that you've worked with that is in the military or previous military, they can kind of speak to what Army medicine is looking for, and that will be helpful as well, A strong GPA is never a bad thing and will help you out. And a high GRE score, you know, like I mentioned before, a 300 is a minimum with a 3.5 in writing. But anything above that is just going to set you apart from your peers. And any additional trainings, certifications that you have obtained is going to help you out, whether you've had experience as a flight nurse, you've done your CCRN or CEN, or you've done TNCC, as well as if you've given presentations, you've written articles, you've been an instructor. All of those things that you've done in your career thus far as a nurse are going to help you stand out and will help you succeed on applying to become a CRNA, or if you're already a CRNA. And then if the group has anything else that they think would help in applying to USAG Pan or the CRNA programs, definitely feel free to chime in.
All right. Anyone else got it? Oh, looks like we got a question that's right here. I'll go ahead and let's put on everyone on the screen really fast. 1 second. Right here. And let's add on the question so that our specialists can get a chance to answer it. The question comes in from Miss Jackie Swan. She said, what are the big differences in schooling from the critical care nurse and critical care paramedic?
I'm not sure what the critical care paramedic course is. So I'm assuming that she's asking about maybe being a 68 whiskey. And that would be a combat medic, and you would be enlisting. The critical care nurse course, you would have to have your bachelor's of science in nursing as well as 2 years med-surg experience before going to that course. I'm not sure if that person's still on, if they could elaborate a little bit more on the critical care paramedic. If you're talking about an Army specific thing, because I'm not tracking that, because in my office, we just do nurses with bachelor's degrees and higher in other medical professions that are a specific specialty with either a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate degree. So if you were a paramedic or wanting to become a paramedic, you know, we could link you up with a local Army recruiter that could help you get in that direction. And I have many contacts in the regular Army recruiting world that would help you do that. But in my office, you have to have a bachelor's.
Looks like we have a comment as a follow-up on here. And it's from Sarn Booth. Hey, Sarn Booth, what's going on? He said that the critical care paramedic course is a requirement for flight medics in the Army. And it is called the 68 Whiskey Foxtrot 2. So thanks for that information.
Really glad that Sarn Booth was watching. He is a wealth of information, and he would have more about that. So if Jackie has further questions, I can link her up with Sarn Booth about that course. But like I mentioned, the paramedic side, that would be if you were enlisting or you're already an Army medic, and then the critical care nursing course would be if you're an officer and you're already a nurse.
Okay. So Jackie, go ahead and send Holly a message on her social media, and she could get you in contact with whomever you're looking for. So thanks for the question, Jackie. So do we want to jump into the next slide?
And yes, unless Major Dial or Colonel Martinson have any thing to add on tips for a successful application to USAG Pan, since they both have experience.
No, I think you hit it, and then you can add to that, you know, a strong shadow experience. I mean, would definitely solidify it.
Okay. And ma'am?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, no problem. All right, here's the next slide. Wait, oh, that's the last slide, honestly.
Yeah, okay, so now that we have given you all this amazing information about the different opportunities of either how you can serve as a CRNA in the Army or Army Reserve, or become a CRNA, through our STRAP program, which, we mentioned was the Army Reserve program, or through HPSP or Sag Pan, which are active duty programs, becoming a CRNA in the Army, who's ready to join me, Major Dial, and Colonel Martinson as the future that takes care of our warfighters on the best team on earth, which is Army medicine. So I just, it might be cheesy to some, but I truly believe that being in the Army is the best team that you can be on, because of our opportunity to serve our nation and all of the relationships and experiences that you can build and grow from, and educational opportunities. It's unmatched from anywhere else.
Yeah. Jackie did a follow-up comment saying, critical care paramedic is a requirement for the 68 Whiskey Foxtrot to the flight medics. And I think Sarm Booth kind of expanded on that as well. So let's go ahead and jump from the slide information, because this contact information is already scrolling on the bottom. And let's just kind of have a group discussion really on, what people want to know. CRNA and the career field, and anything that Colonel Martinson or Major Dial wants to provide to the viewers of our discussion.
Well, I will just kind of caveat what Captain Weaver said about the opportunities, and the exposure and the relationships that you get to build. I personally have performed anesthesia on a Supreme Court justice. I have performed anesthesia on someone that lived in the White House. Several congressional leaders in the Washington, D.C. area. Men and women wounded on the battlefield, civilian trauma patients. In our current job, we basically cover all of the surgical services that you could ever want. And we do these all as independent credentialed providers. We do see some differences when we get some of our reservists come in that come from some of those different models where they're more directed in the care. And to be honest with you, some of those providers, we have to kind of train them up and bring them up to speed on how do they come up with an anesthetic plan, and how do they manage certain things under anesthesia. And so that, to me, is when you put that with the deployment aspect of what we do are the two biggest things for when you talk about Army CRNAs. When I went to Syria in 2017, I stopped in Kuwait, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and man, they overfeed you like you would not believe. I mean, I had the biggest plate you've ever seen, but I saw 6 of my classmates in Kuwait. I was there for 2 days. 6 people that I graduated with. 2 were going to Afghanistan, 2 were going to Iraq, and 2 were in Kuwait, and I was going to Syria. And so, when you're out there and you see that, we cover the entire AO. We cover the entire realm of deployments in Army medicine. And so those opportunities are definitely there. And if you want the challenge and you're up for the commitment, then absolutely, we'd love to have you.
Excellent. And ma'am, how about you?
So I did not do anesthesia at Walter Reed, so I haven't done quite as cool of patients as James has. But before coming to Launch Duel, I did anesthesia at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which is, I think, actually a fairly different experience than doing anesthesia at Walter Reed. The large majority of our patients actually are soldiers. A lot with orthopedic injuries. They do a lot of jumping at Fort Bragg. So no famous people, but definitely a lot of soldiers. And then working here at Launch Duel, not only are we the people that go out into Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq and do the anesthesia there, but also when anyone from the European theater or the African theater gets sent back to the U.S. We're basically their first line of care after they've been treated downrange here in Europe. And so we've treated a lot of wounded warriors and stuff coming through here as well. So it's a pretty cool experience.
Excellent. It looks like we got some questions coming in. So let's go ahead and throw the questions on, and maybe each one of you all can answer it. So here's the first question. It comes in from Ms. Taylor McAlpine. Said, what were some of the biggest challenges you both had during CRNA school? And what advice do you have to handle the stress of school?
I think the biggest challenge was just for our program, the Sag Pan program. You know, we stand in front of the department every morning and we give morning reports. Okay, and so when you get into anesthesia school and you haven't done a single anesthetic, and you have to stand in front of a department full of doctorally prepared people, it's a very humbling experience. Okay. So that's probably the biggest stressor, because you walk in there on day one and you haven't done a single anesthetic, and the expectation is that you've had the class, and so now you've read enough and you've practiced enough and you're prepared enough to present your cases in front of those people. And so that was always kind of a big stress for me, because it was a little bit kind of like a shark tank in the morning. But the way we alleviated some of that stress was just try to fit in exercise, man. You just absolutely have to. Otherwise it is pretty stressful. And so, you know, you obviously cannot exercise every day. You'll be pulling some night shifts, you'll be pulling some weekends. Your schedule is going to move back and forth, but whenever you can fit in some exercise, you absolutely have to.
Excellent. What about you, ma'am?
I would say, so I think what the most stressful part about anesthesia school is very individual. For some people, getting out of phase one, which is the didactic portion where you're sitting in a classroom and you're studying notes and you're taking a lot of exams, for some people, it's very difficult to make it through phase one. But then some of those people show up to phase two and they're very good with their hands and they're very good putting what they've learned into practice. Other people do amazing in phase one, and then they get into phase two and they're not quite as good as putting it into practice. So I think everybody is a little bit different in where their strengths and their weaknesses are. I completely agree with James. Probably the biggest stressor for me as well is morning report, when you're put on the spot to talk about your patients and your anesthetic plan, and then take questions from the rest of the staff who are educated and experienced. And a lot of times you just don't know what you don't even know. I think that part is also very, very stressful. My tip would be to very quickly learn when to stop talking.
Yes, absolutely. That's silence is not your enemy.
How so? Can you expand a little bit more on that a little bit?
I will. I mean, I can remember one of my instructors, you know, he loved to give morphine intraoperatively, and I was like, oh, I said, you don't like to use Dilaudid? Because it seems like a lot of people here like to use Dilaudid. And then he went into this 10-minute inquisition into what I knew about Dilaudid, which was not very much at the time. And I was like, so like, okay, I'm just going to shut up now. Like,
yes. Yeah. Don't bring up a subject you don't want to get quizzed on.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Makes full sense. So Taylor, thank you very much for the question. And, I will, leave the place open now for any more comments or questions coming in. If we don't have any, I'd like to, allow Captain Weaver. You look like you're about to say something. Go ahead, Captain Weaver.
I actually was getting a couple questions in on my personal cell from people that were watching the feed. The first is a shout out to Major Dial from Major Jody Stouffer. who
Oh yeah.
came
Yeah.
into the Army shortly before I did, through the same office, and she said she knew you and wanted to say hi. And she actually is our officer in charge at our station. And then a question that was brought up was, what is the program called, and how does it work if your spouse is also serving in the Army, and how does that work?
James.
Right. So I'm it's called the Married Army Couples Program, or MACP for short. And basically it keeps you together. So my wife's an Army nurse, she's an ICU nurse. Together we've both been in roughly 20 years between both of us, and we've always been together. Sometimes like when I was in Kansas City in recruiting, I was in Kansas City and she was at Fort Leavenworth, so we kind of lived in between, but we still met at the dinner table every single night. And then I had to cook dinner. She's not a cook. No, just kidding. So definitely it's easy if you guys are both in the same corps. Now, if you're married to an intel officer or an infantry officer, or it can get tricky. But luckily for us, as medical providers, everywhere there's a Joe or a soldier, there's a hospital there. Okay. And if they're doing surgery, there's CRNAs there as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your experience and for letting us know about that program, because it's definitely another advantage, that the Army has if your spouse is also serving, that, we have that available. And then the other question that I received was, let's say you completed your ADSO as an active duty CRNA, could you serve in the reserve? And have you guys ever thought about serving in the reserve, or do you know like any of your classmates that decided to serve in the reserve after, serving on active duty?
Absolutely. And we actually have one of our colleagues that we graduated with right now. He's leaving active duty and he's going into the reserves. And we had another guy, Brad Manili, about a year ago. He left active duty and signed a bonus and went straight into the reserves. And he comes here to Germany to do his 30 days for the year. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's not a bad gig for sure.
I think so. Probably to answer the question, if either James or I have thought about doing reserves, just for us, the timeline, basically works out that for us, it makes more sense to just retire off of active duty because we have already 20 years now. So, but for the people who join the Army or go into the anesthesia program with no prior service, then after they've completed the program and they've completed their obligation, at that point you would only have between like 8 and 10 years of service. And so certainly it might make sense for you at that time to go into the reserves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that.
Any other questions, Holly?
Those were the couple that I got in my phone. I'm glad I looked.
Okay, good. I've got actually a comment, and I think it's more so a compliment on our presentation today. Someone named Clifford Lovett said, "Awesome job, folks." Hey, and I fully agree with what Clifford said. This has been an awesome opportunity for us to just share, personal stories from career CRNA officers, and of course, getting good information on how you can also become a CRNA nurse for the Army. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for participating in today's live chat. Thank you for the questions that's coming in, and thank you everyone here on our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Colonel Martinson, Major Dial. Appreciate your time and the fact that y'all were able to work it out, since you are in Germany and many hours ahead of where we are in the central time zone. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us. It was really great meeting you, ma'am, and nice to meet you again, Major Dial. And I'm forever grateful for you giving that presentation, helping me on my path to success as a Army nurse and officer, and it's been, you know, quite the experience. And you know, I'm almost 8 years in and have at least 12 more to go. So I thank you for everything you did for me and my family.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It truly makes me happy to see you doing so well. So congratulations on where you're at and where you're going to go.
Thank you.
Good.
Appreciate that,
Hey,
sir.
so if everyone can hang out in the broadcast room, I will go ahead and give my parting message to everyone. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll see y'all in a little bit. So in parting, we want to say, hey, if you are interested in a CRNA Army Career Nursing field, we have a lot of good options there for you. You heard testimonies from both our colonel and the major, and of course, Captain Weaver giving you her contact information. The information is still scrolling on the bottom. You see it on the bottom. You see it on the bottom. Go ahead and send her an email, a phone call, a text message. Send her a shout out on LinkedIn, and she will reach back to you and tell you of the options that there are there for you. So I say in parting, as I always, take care of yourself, take care of your family, and take care of others. Bye now.